Welcome, folks. Continue with the mimer on the eve of Shvi Shal Pesach on the seventh day of Pesach. So, trying to explain, or we are explaining, the Rebbe is explaining, how the time to come of Mashiach, how that will be a greater revelation of godliness. And going out of all boundaries and limitations, even of holy boundaries and limitations that are, I guess you would call maybe appropriate ones. Michael, you can let in. So we explained, and it's specifically at the end of the exile where we are right now, that this is going to be accomplished. Where the limitations are greater, and therefore the going out of those limitations are more crucially necessary. So, all the worlds that God creates are called Mitzrayim, Egypt, because the word Mitzrayim means, Egypt means limitation, boundary. It means also concealment. The boundary is the fact that it takes time and space. That's a boundary. And a hiddenness of the divine light. At the same time, also, and that's what the word world that God creates, Olam, comes from the word Helam, concealing the light, but it also comes from the word Alim, which means powerful, strong, which means that the worlds that God creates are limited, restricted, powerful concealment on the divine. All right. So continuing. So now a little Kabbalistic jargon over here. So hold on to your Kabbalistic hat. Continuing in the mimer, in the discourse. The Rebbe is basing himself on the previous Rebbe. The creation of the worlds comes from the Or Hakav, which means the light of the line, literally. Because the light that's before contraction, it's not possible that worlds should be created as they are in their limitation, their limitation, and in their concealment. Why? Because the worlds, there is a higher world and a lower world. That's the idea of space. There's physical space, but before there's physical space, there's spiritual space. But spiritual space, higher, lower. Not in a physical plane, because when we speak about worlds, there's only this physical world, right? But beyond this physical world, there's worlds, spiritual worlds, like the world of Asiya, spiritual, Yitzira, Bria, and Atzilus, right? The four basic worlds. So spiritually, higher and lower is space. So the light that is before the contraction of God's contracting on the light right, to produce what we call the kav, the line, figuratively, right? When I say line, it's not a physical line, of course. So the light before contraction, there's no head, there's no end, there's no top, there's no bottom, right? Which means there's no concept of space, spiritual space. Also, the light before contraction is a light that's actually included in the essence of God. And that light that is included in the luminary is completely nullified to such a degree that you wouldn't call it light. Just like the light of the sun within the sun, you don't call it light, you call it sun, right? Only when it emerges outside of the sun do you call it a light. So think of the sun, right, just as a metaphor. So that's the source of light. The light in it is nullified to it. It's a part of the luminary of the sun. And therefore it's completely nullified, right? Again, it doesn't even have a name, light. So likewise, before God contracts upon himself, well, there's light, but that light is completely nullified. And therefore, you can't even say that God, the, that Atzmos, that this light becomes a source for creation. Because to become a source of something, you yourself have to be a something. In other words, you have to be something that is relative to that which you are a source of, right? But this light that we're talking about, that's before contraction, is so nullified within its source, it can't be a source for creation. Now, it's ultimately where creation comes from. But when we say a source, a makar, right, it means more of a direct source. So it can't be a direct source. Only through the or hakav, the light of the line, the kav, we'll just call it kav, right? Which that line comes through the contraction of God, that he contracts upon himself, that there now is a reality, there's a thing called light. Again, before contraction of upon the infinite light, the Atzmos, that light is nullified. Now that there's a contraction, there's something called a thing called light. And that thing is specifically the orakav, and through it can now come the thing, the reality called light itself. That this light has a top and a bottom, if you will, meaning level, meaning spiritual space. And therefore, since it itself has spiritual space, that's why it's called a line, right? Because a line has a top of the line and the bottom of the line. Right? Again, this is all a figure of speech, right? So now that you have this top and bottom, that it can now be a source of a top and bottom, meaning physical space of this world. So the Rebbe says, Yesh Lema, we could say that these two ideas, that the Kav has these two ideas that we mentioned previously in the about the world. What is it? We say previously that there's Milo Mata, there's above and below, which that means the Kav is already the concept of something that has limitation of the world, right? It's got limitation. Limitation, again, means, in this world, means space and time, right? Here we're speaking specifically about space, right? But which is related to time. So beyond the physical world, the source for the concept of physical space and time is related to the Kav that has the top of it, the bottom of it, levels, because it's coming, right? It's coming from, yeah. So that's the idea of limitation. And also the Kav being that it is a thing. What's that thing? Oh, light. Not light that is completely nullified to its source, not light the way it's in the sun, but light that emerges from the sun. So it's a thing now. That's similar to the concealment that we spoke about. Right. Why? Because when you're a thing, you're a something. So even though the ray of light reflects the sun, so it reflects its source, that's true. But it's still a concealment of the source, because now what you recognize or what you're perceiving is the light that emerges from it. That's the cause for its somethingness. So accordingly, now we can understand that all the worlds are called Egypt, Mitzrayim. Why? Because they all have a limitation. These two ideas, right? These two ideas of that there's higher and lower, right? That's space limitation. And concealment, because the world is, right, a something. That's the concept of worlds. Now we can say that the Kav is also included in this idea of Egypt. So then what does it mean really to go out of Egypt? What does it mean to go out of Egypt now, based on what we just learned? Get a new idea here. That going out of all limitations and boundaries is that you reveal the essence of God himself that's beyond tzimtzum, contraction. Not even the Kav. Beyond the Kav. That's a very lofty level of, right, within creation. That you reveal the core essence of God himself. And this is what's actually going to happen in the final redemption, that the light, then there's going to be the complete going out of Egypt. As now we're, when we went out of Egypt the first time, wasn't complete. Proof is there was an exile again. But this is going to be the complete going out of Egypt from all limitations and boundaries. Because then will be the revelation of the light of God before contraction. And in this itself is going to be a light, a revelation of the light that is without limitation, beyond that which is even a source for the world. Till be the revelation of Atzmos, of the essence of God himself. Now, this, that it will be in the time to come, there will be going out of all of the boundaries and limitation, is concerns every aspect, that all matters of the world in the world to come will be in a manner that will be beyond the way the things are now. Concerning the world, meaning that we will perceive a new world. We'll perceive a new heaven, a new earth. That's what we're going to. And also concerning even Torah itself, which Torah is the source of creation, as it's the blueprints of creation. So in times of Mashiach will be Torah, Chadash Mititete, like a new Torah that will come out from God. New in that way, that beyond the limitations of how we perceive Torah now. And likewise also concerning how we draw down godliness into this world. That it will be completely beyond that which we reveal now. Now what we reveal is from the external aspect of Atik, which is the will of God. Then we will reveal the internal aspect of Atik, which is the divine delight. And this, I'm saying this now. I know this is way beyond everybody, beyond me too, on some level. I mean, on some level, on many levels. I'm just saying the mimer. I'm not even giving any explanation at this point. And just hear the words, let them penetrate. And this will be the final redemption. Will therefore particularly be done by us in the final days of exile. Why? Because all of the matters of the things that will be in times of Mashiach are going to be new. Therefore, what we need to do in our divine service is draw down a new, something beyond, new. What is this idea? So he explains. The times of the Holy Temple, then there was revelation of godliness. There were 10 miracles that happened to our forebears in the Holy Temple. Miracles that you could see with your eyes. That some of the miracles, even nations of the world perceived those miracles. Therefore, the service of God then was rational. That even though the Torah tells us that we should love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, which means beyond rationale. But since they saw miracles of God in a palpable, real way, even their self-sacrifice of rising beyond themselves was a limited one of rationality. In the end, hey, he perceived it, it was palpable. They saw a revelation of godliness. So likewise, in the time of exile, when the darkness wasn't so great, as in previous generations, darkness wasn't so great, right? So relative to today, where the darkness is much more powerful, crazy world, as they say, right? As it gets crazier by the day, right? Yeah, I had 100 years that everything stayed the same. Today, the envelope is being pushed crazier. Maybe we could see that in world leaders too, the craziness. So as we march forward towards the times of Mashiach. So the darkness gets greater and greater, therefore the challenges become greater, especially the challenge of to not be embarrassed, because those who embarrass, who make fun, especially those people who make fun, they're low lives, right? I'm going to let you figure out what that means to you in your personal life and what we see what's happening around the world, because I want to finish this now. And therefore it makes it hard to take. But when we stand in self-sacrifice beyond any measure, beyond any limitation, this is our of divine service now on the heels of Mashiach. And in this generation, that we are the generation that is closing up the end of exile. Therefore, our divine service is so much greater now than ever before, in a manner that is limitless. This is new. Wow. I have a lot of thoughts on this because I want to finish this, and the holiday is going to begin tonight, Shabbos and the holiday at the end of Pesach. So I'm not going to explain anything because we've got a minute left. So that our Avodah, for those who are going to be here, Fabring about it. Wow, wow, wow. That in a manner that is beyond limit, completely new than from the previous generations. The previous generations, they had a connection to more rationality, more, you know, intelligence, which that intelligence itself is a limitation of one's, inner powers of the soul. Now, at the end of exile, we have complete self-sacrifice that comes from the core essence of our soul. Through this Avodah, divine service in time of Golus in general, and especially in the end of exile, that it comes from the core essence of the soul. We draw the core essence from above until we draw to the core essence of Atik, that through this will be a complete novelty also in Torah that will be drawn from the giver of the Torah in a new manner. And we'll see newness in everything. And this will be done through our divine service. That when our divine service is with complete self-sacrifice, then the study of Torah will be for the sake of heaven. And through this, we'll make a complete novelty also in creation itself, because through our Torah, right, we will do that. We will create that reality, because Torah is, after all, the blueprints of creation. So through our learning it, we will create that new reality of, and others, we're the ones who are causing all of Mashiach coming, right? We're the one who's doing it, right? We're constantly going out of Egypt, right? We're creating the going out of Egypt that we're going to be seeing the wonders. That will be a new heavens and new earth. That's what we will create, we will perceive, we will. And may be Hashem's will that all this should be very soon through our actions and our divine service. Now we will go, because of Mamish, very soon, literally, to receive the countenance of Mashiach, our righteous one. Then will be fulfilled in actuality, literally, just as going out of the days going out of Egypt. I will show you wonders, Yad Nigolim, and immediately we will be redeemed. With that, we finished the discourse. Went over time. I want to finish it. There's, of course, a lot to bring there and to explain, which I didn't. But we will by Mashiach Suda.